This isn't a video I wanted to make. This is my response to the tragedy that happened on the set of Rust. Cause of death. Film sets are incredibly complex working environments with a lot of moving parts, and invariably days roll on and the hours lengthen out. That's just the nature of the job. And accidents are going to happen. It's impossible to remove all danger. There should be procedures in place to minimize the risk, but ultimately you have people on a set, you can't remove all of the danger. It's a producer's responsibility to try and put procedures in place to follow set protocols, but ultimately bad things are going to happen. Accidents are going to happen. People are going to get hurt. Now, what I would say is there are probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions by now, of rounds blanks being shot on Hollywood films and independent films, and very few deaths. In fact, most deaths or most accidents on a film set are related to cars. And we're not suggesting that we remove cars from films, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that we remove firearms from films. Certainly not blanks. Of course, there shouldn't be live ammunition. That's given. I don't want to suggest any reason as to why there was a live round on the set of Rust. But that was a huge oversight. But the point of this video isn't to critique what happened on the set of Rust and try and apply any blame to that. I want to talk about what's going on in the industry in general and how what happened on the set of Rust is symptomatic. The fact is, film crews are increasingly being pushed to the limit. So much so that in the US, IASTE, which is the guild that covers most crew members below the line, film crews, and those are people who work on films but aren't directors and producers and high-paid actors. Your lighting guys, your sound, your camera crews. These are generally the people that are covered by IATSE. Now, they recently negotiated. We're going to negotiate a strike. The strike hasn't happened. It's about to be it's yet to be ratified. But on this point of film crews being pushed too hard, that they're not being paid fairly, but that's not the main point, certainly not in terms of danger. It's that they were working long hours, but they're not given the appropriate rest. A lot of them work without breaks. A lot of them have a turnover time of say 6 hours before they've got to be back on set and do a full day's work, and they're not provided with the proper accommodation. This strike that was being negotiated by IATSE or threatened, that will affect guild productions, which is most of the sort of higher budget TV and films. But that doesn't affect non-union productions, and it doesn't really affect things here in the UK. And it's the UK industry specifically that I want to call out. Now, to give you a bit of background, I am a UK-based filmmaker. I'm a producer, and it's a tough environment here right now. Investments are thin on the ground. The hours are long and competition is high. And what can happen is that as the budgets are tight, it's the crews that pay the price for that. Not enough breaks, not adequate food, not adequate rest. I've heard stories, I'm not going to name names, but I have heard stories of crews being given like a bare concrete floored room with mattresses in it, and that was their accommodation for the production. I've heard of actors, they were going into a shoot in a wooded area. There was no food provided. When they complained about it, a producer went and bought a roll of ham, a loaf of bread. The bread wasn't sliced, the ham wasn't sliced, and they didn't have a knife and fork. And that was their catering. It's not good enough. And it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not coming at this without experience. My last feature film, Hosts, which I produced with Craig Hind, that was a micro-budget film, and yet everybody had appropriate rest. Everybody had breaks, unless they decided to work the break on their own, but they had breaks allocated. There was proper catering, hot meals, refreshments available all the time. And this is basic standards. I'm surprised that it isn't always the case. And this is going to get some people's backs up. I'm expecting some negative comments on this, but I don't care. Because we've got to look after our crews. And here's the thing that makes no sense to me, and the thing that really confuses me. Your crews are the people that are realising your vision. So if you look after your crews, which we did on Hosts, They will give 110%. I can't fault the crew on Host. They were phenomenal. And we worked some long hours as the days were on towards the end of the production, but we made sure everybody had appropriate rest and everybody was fed properly. And the crew appreciated it and they felt valued. And that's the key thing, is making them feel valued, because they will then put their heart and soul into it. Most of the crews, 99% of the crews, love what they do. And they want to do it well. They want to do it to an excellent standard. They want to give you their best. So it's not too much to ask to at least make them feel valued enough to be able to do that. I know budgets are tight, but here's the other thing. Hosts was a tight budget. And yet we managed to make sure everybody was looked after, everybody got paid, because sometimes crews don't get paid, and that sucks. And I mean, there was back end offered as well, but that was on top of pay. And the film still achieved international distribution. We got into Sitges. You know, we repaid all our investors. So you can achieve all of those things and still look after your crew. Frankly, there's no excuse not to do it. What happened on the set of Rust shouldn't have happened. Nobody wanted it to happen, and my heart goes out to everybody involved. But I think that under the current working environment, it was inevitable. Filmmakers love their productions, but no production is worth someone's life. It's time that the standard was raised, and that these sorts of conversations, these threats of strike by guilds, shouldn't have to happen. It's not fair that the people who are actually making the production, they're on the ground making it happen, and they're the ones that are paying the price for squeezing things. That's not fair. I'm not going to abuse my crews, and I'm making a point of continuing like that, and I certainly hope that that becomes the norm. That's the standard. If you've got anything negative to say about it, please do jump into the comments, because I'm quite happy to rebut. Yeah, and I know that this is going to irritate some people, and so be it, because, like I said, it's not worth jeopardizing people's health. Let's treat people like people. Let's make this a better industry to work in.